Quantum leaders, the guardian, the preconscious flow of reality. The guardian's natural style, measured, grounded, and anchored in structure, often leads them to trust in what is visible, proven, and repeatable. Yet through the principle of the preconscious, we see that their precision doesn't emerge only from logic. It arises from a deeper, often unspoken intelligence. Guardians are not simply organizers of order. They are sensors of disruption before it fully forms. Their timing, foresight, and corrections often appear methodical, but in truth, they are guided by subtle impressions and unspoken alerts that surface before the mind has time to rationalize. The guardian's genius lives in this early detection field, a quiet knowing that steadies the future before it wobbles. With a motivation direction of away from, the guardian is attuned to what might go wrong. But often, their first signal isn't data, it's energetic. A meeting feels tense. A schedule feels off. A system looks fine, but feels brittle. These preconscious alerts are not anomalies. They are the earliest wave of entropy. Guardians who learn to trust this subtle field begin preventing not just problems, but the conditions that lead to them. Their stability becomes predictive. Their attention focus on self makes them deeply self-responsible. But in the preconscious field, awareness precedes thought. A guardian may feel a hesitation to send a message, a gentle push to double-check something, or a flicker of concern before a task begins. These are not inefficiencies. They are early alerts from a deeper layer of order. When the guardian honors those small nudges, they catch errors that no spreadsheet could reveal. With an internal frame of reference, they tend to act from what they know is right. But what feels right often emerges before it can be explained. A guardian's sense that a process is flawed, even when it technically works, is often preconscious intelligence trying to surface. When they create space to pause, even briefly, they allow intuition to clarify what logic will later confirm. Their procedural operational style favors predictability. Yet, it is often during execution that the preconscious speaks most clearly. A step suddenly feels outdated. A shortcut feels wrong. A template feels too rigid. Guardians elevate when they allow gentle flexibility inside form, responding to energetic shifts without abandoning structure. This isn't disorder, it's preconscious correction. Their specific viewpoint makes them precise. But the preconscious often hides in what's not explicit. The tone behind a request, the timing of a delay, the discomfort in a team's unspoken mood. When guardians learn to scan the margins, they stop over-focusing on what's visible and begin stabilizing what's emerging. They become not just accurate, but attuned. With a solo work preference, the guardian often does their best thinking alone. This is their gift. In solitude, the noise quiets and preconscious signals can be heard. A sudden sense that something is missing. An urge to revisit a process before sleep. A pattern that appears during a quiet walk. These are not random. They are the intelligence of the system speaking through the guardian's nervous system. Their inner stillness becomes a channel for systemic clarity. Their dissociated emotional engagement keeps their actions clean and calm. But the preconscious often speaks through emotion, not logic, especially subtle ones, mild tension, unexpected calm, quiet pressure in the chest. Guardians evolve when they stop overriding these sensations as irrelevant and begin tracking them as early data. Emotion doesn't interrupt execution, it deepens intuition. As matchers, they repeat what works. But innovation often begins with a feeling that something familiar no longer fits. A guardian may notice restlessness with a procedure they once trusted, or a process they can't quite name as wrong, but no longer feels aligned. The moment they pause to investigate that mismatch, they begin evolving the system preemptively, rather than reactively. Their through-time orientation helps them plan and sequence effectively. But preconscious signals don't always obey timelines. An early sense that a project will delay, even when all appears on track, is often correct. A quiet urgency to act sooner than planned may prevent a larger crisis. Guardians who listen to these cues expand their relationship with time, not as ruler but as rhythm. They shift from managing schedules to sensing readiness. And with a primary drive of things, the guardian focuses on outputs. But everything they build, every structure, report, or plan, originates from somewhere invisible. Often it starts with a sense, a felt need, a quiet question. The most coherent systems aren't born from protocol, they're born from presence. Guardians who honor that presence before action don't just build reliable systems, they build systems that listen. In this field, the guardian transcends their stereotype as the executor of the familiar. They become a quiet visionary, detecting subtle misalignments before they manifest and tuning the system before it wobbles. Their leadership doesn't announce itself loudly, it whispers, it waits, and then it moves. With impeccable timing, seamless precision, and a deep, unspoken knowing, they don't just prevent collapse, they feel it coming and steady it before it begins. Quantum leaders, the guardian, you are the tipping point. The guardian's natural style, measured, system-bound, and deeply consistent, often casts them in a supporting role, the one who holds things together while others lead the charge. Yet in the quantum field, where small shifts ripple into system-wide consequences, the guardian is not just a background stabilizer. They are the tipping point. In times of change, it is not always visionaries or disruptors who move the system. It is the one who grounds the vision, locks the change into place, and signals that stability is still possible inside evolution. And that person is the guardian. With a motivation direction of away from, the guardian is instinctively focused on what could go wrong. But this focus, when consciously held, becomes early intervention. The moment the guardian fixes a process no one saw breaking, reinforces a boundary before it's crossed, or quietly tightens a sequence that was slipping, they tip the system back into coherence. Their action may be invisible to most, but it is the hinge that prevents collapse. Their attention focus on self brings reliability and integrity, but this self-trust, when fully embodied, becomes anchoring for others. When a guardian remains steady during panic, calm during change, and consistent while the team wavers, their very presence begins to organize the field. People start mirroring their regulation. The guardian becomes not just a participant in the system, they become its recalibration point. With an internal frame of reference, they don't need external permission to act, and this becomes catalytic when others are uncertain. The tipping point is rarely a dramatic overhaul. It's often the one person who sees what needs doing and simply does it. Guardians tip the system when they trust their quiet knowing and act on it without waiting for consensus. Their procedural operational style often positions them as the ones who keep things running. But running isn't enough when the system is stuck. The tipping point arrives when the guardian upgrades a protocol, modifies a checklist, or catches a misalignment just in time. Change becomes real, not when it is announced, but when it is embedded. And the guardian is the one who embeds it. Their specific viewpoint lets them catch micro disruptions others miss. The tipping point might be a single email reworded, a workflow corrected, or a repeated error quietly resolved. It doesn't take spectacle, it takes precision. Guardians become pivotal when they realize small corrections at key moments change the trajectory of entire systems. With a solo work preference, they often operate quietly behind the scenes. But tipping points are not about visibility. They are about leverage. When a guardian, without fanfare, takes ownership of the weakest link and repairs it, they shift the entire system's capacity forward. They are the still hand on the rudder, while others are flailing at the sails. Their dissociated emotional engagement allows them to stay clear-headed when others are reactive. In moments of collective stress, the guardian becomes the eye of the storm. They feel less, so they see more. Their emotional neutrality is not detachment, it's precision. When emotions flood a system, their calm action becomes the pivot between meltdown and momentum. As matchers, they trust what's worked, but the tipping point comes when they choose which part of the past to bring forward. Guardians tip the system when they say, "We've done this before. Here's how." Their invocation of precedent doesn't hold back innovation. It gives it a foundation. They become the memory that makes movement safe. Their through-time orientation gives them an ability to time things well. The tipping point doesn't need to be urgent. It needs to be timely. A process started one day earlier, a warning given before the breaking point, a steady "let's begin" that cuts through indecision. The guardian becomes the shift, not because they rush, but because they act when it matters most. And with the primary drive of things, they turn decisions into forms, plans into systems, and chaos into order. But the real tipping point is not just what they build, it's when they build it. The moment they formalize a change, document a shift, or complete what others were only conceptualizing, the system stabilizes into its new state. The Guardian doesn't just support transformation, they confirm it. In this light, the Guardian becomes the one whose quiet action moves the wheel. They may not initiate the revolution, but they make it real. They don't speak first, but they act when others freeze. Their choice to uphold what matters, adapt what's ready, or finish what's pending is what tips possibility into permanence. Their steadiness creates momentum. Their clarity becomes signal. And in a system on the edge, the Guardian is not the resistance. They are the turn.